Bees. Yeah, you've probably seen them buzzing around flowers or maybe even been unlucky enough to get stung by one. But here's the thing. Bees are way more than just tiny flying creatures with a knack for finding your soda can at a picnic. These little insects are some of the most fascinating, hardworking, and downright essential creatures on the planet. Now, buckle up because what you're about to hear is the ultimate deep dive into the incredible world of bees, and trust me, you won't look at them the same way again. So, where do we even begin with bees? How about this? There are over 20,000 species of bees in the world. Yeah, that's right. Not just the honeybees or the bumblebees you're familiar with. Bees come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, living everywhere from rainforests to deserts. Some of them don't even live in colonies. They're the lone wolves of the bee world, living their lives solo, without the buzz of hive drama. But let's focus on the star of the show, the honeybee. Why? Because these little heroes do more than just make honey. In fact, they're like nature's most valuable employees, working 24/7 to keep our ecosystems thriving. Without bees, you wouldn't have many of your favorite foods. You think your morning smoothie or that avocado toast is safe without bees? Think again. Here's the deal. 1 out of every 3 bites of food you take exists because of bee pollination. They're responsible for crops like apples, almonds, strawberries, cucumbers, and, of course, coffee. Yeah, your morning cup of joe, thank a bee for that. But let's break it down even further. How does pollination actually work? Why are bees so crucial? Imagine this. A bee lands on a flower. While it's doing its thing, drinking sweet nectar, the flower's pollen sticks to the tiny hairs on the bee's body. The bee flies off, visiting more flowers, and unknowingly transfers pollen from flower to flower. That simple act of pollination is what allows plants to reproduce and bear fruit. No bees, no pollination. No pollination, no food. It's that serious. And here's another mind blower. A single bee can visit up to 5,000 flowers in one day. That's like running a marathon while multitasking. If you think your workday is exhausting, imagine being a bee for a day. But bees aren't just excellent workers, they're also incredibly smart. Their brains are the size of a sesame seed, yet they can communicate through dance. No joke. Honeybees perform something called a waggle dance. Basically, they shake their little bee booties to tell the other bees where the best flowers are located. The direction and speed of the dance tell the hive exactly where to go to find the good stuff. It's like GPS, but cooler because, well, it's dancing. And here's where it gets even wilder. Despite their tiny size, bees have the ability to recognize human faces. Scientists figured this out by showing bees pictures of people's faces and training them to recognize certain ones. So, if you've ever felt like that bee is just staring you down, well, maybe it actually is. Now, we can't talk about bees without diving into their homes, their hives. A beehive is an architectural marvel. Inside, bees build hexagonal honeycombs, which are perfect for storing honey, raising their young, and keeping everything organized. The hexagon shape? It's no accident. It's the most efficient shape in nature, allowing bees to store the maximum amount of honey using the least amount of wax. Nature, man, it's like these bees have a degree in engineering. But who's running this hive? Every hive has a queen, and she's the real boss. The queen bee is the mother of all the bees in the hive, literally. She can lay up to 2,000 eggs a day. Her primary job is to make sure the colony stays strong, and the worker bees treat her like royalty, feeding and grooming her constantly. But here's the kicker. If the queen isn't doing her job well, if she gets old or weak, the workers will kick her out and raise a new queen. No pressure or anything. And speaking of roles, let's break down the bee society. Every bee has a job. Worker bees are all females, and they're the ones you see flying around, collecting nectar and pollen. They also clean the hive, feed the young, and even protect the hive from intruders. Male bees, called drones, have one job and one job only: to mate with the queen. After that, their story kind of ends, if you catch my drift. Now, I know what you're thinking, But what about the honey? Tell me about the honey. Don't worry, we're getting to that. Honeybees produce honey by gathering nectar from flowers. They store it in their honey stomachs, yeah, they have a special stomach just for honey, and then regurgitate it back in the hive. Sounds gross, but the result? Liquid gold. Honey never spoils, either. Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are thousands of years old and still perfectly edible. Now, that's shelf-stable food. But honey isn't just a sweet treat. It has natural antibacterial properties and has been used for centuries in medicine. People use it to treat wounds, soothe sore throats, and even in skincare. Talk about versatile. Here's another mind-blowing fact. Bees make wax too. You know, the stuff used in candles, lip balm, and furniture polish? Worker bees secrete beeswax from glands on their abdomens and use it to construct the honeycomb. It takes about 1,100 bees to make just a single pound of wax. So next time you light a beeswax candle, think about the work that went into it. But here's the thing, bees are in trouble. Yeah, despite all the incredible things they do, bees are facing some serious challenges. The term, colony collapse disorder, might sound like the name of a sci-fi movie, but it's a real and growing problem. It refers to the sudden disappearance of worker bees from a hive, leaving behind the queen and a handful of young bees. Scientists are still trying to figure out exactly what's causing this, but it seems to be a combination of things: pesticides, habitat loss, parasites, and climate changes. And it's not just colony collapse disorder. In the past few decades, bee populations around the world have been declining at an alarming rate. Fewer bees mean less pollination, which means less food. It's that simple. We're not just talking about honey here. We're talking about a global food crisis if we don't do something about it. But there's hope. There are things we can do to help bees, and it doesn't involve becoming a beekeeper overnight, unless you're into that, in which case, go for it. Simple things like planting more flowers, especially native wildflowers, can make a huge difference. Bees need a variety of plants to thrive, so turning your garden into a bee-friendly buffet is one of the best ways to support them. Avoiding pesticides is another big one. Many common pesticides are toxic to bees, so choosing organic options or pesticide-free gardening can help keep them safe. And here's a cool fact. Some cities are even starting to install urban beehives. Rooftops, balconies, and parks are becoming new homes for bees, proving that even in the concrete jungle, there's room for these little pollinators. And before we wrap up, let's give a shout out to bumblebees. Yeah, honeybees get most of the spotlight, but bumblebees are just as impressive. They're bigger, fuzzier, and have a more laid-back approach to life. Instead of waggle dancing, they use something called buzz pollination. Basically, they vibrate their bodies to shake pollen loose from flowers. It's the bumblebee version of shake it off, and it's incredibly effective, especially for plants like tomatoes and peppers. So, let's take a moment to appreciate the bees, all 20,000 species of them. These tiny creatures may not look like much, but they play a massive role in keeping our world turning. Next time you see a bee buzzing by, maybe give it a nod of thanks. After all, it's probably just finished visiting its 4,999th flower of the day, and that's worth some respect. Now go enjoy that cup of coffee or that slice of apple pie, and remember who helped make it all possible.